As someone who covers the monster taming genre chiefly, I'm always getting tons of questions regarding both upcoming and currently out monster taming games for Android and or iOS. Now, being that I'm a bit of a monster taming enthusiast, if you will, I figured it'd be a lot of fun to put together my largest mobile list video to date. Do note that I have already published 2 other videos that are similar, though you'll definitely find some games in this video not covered in those and vice versa, so I'll leave them all linked below. Anyways, that said, here is my 2022 list of 20 monster taming titles, both upcoming and already out. I hope you enjoy. Alright, so first up on this list is a brand new monster taming title in the works dubbed Tamers Arena, a title that describes itself as being a monster battler set in a Japanese anime-style world where you can catch over 100 monsters and create your own powerful team to fight in strategic turn-based battles. As of such, the main focus of the game is battling, and it will function much like a Pokemon Stadium game or even something like Pokemon Showdown, where essentially you jump right into the fray without copious amounts of preparation, usually required from other titles in the genre. We don't have a lot of information regarding this title, as it did recently just make itself public, but from what we do know, it is scheduled to launch sometime mid to late 2022. Now, you might be familiar with the game's sequel, Monster Hunter Stories 2: Wings of Ruin, but what you might not know is that the first title of the franchise, Monster Hunter Stories, was actually made for download as a mobile title. Monster Hunter Stories is a fun, semi-open world monster taming RPG with a cast of very punny characters, if you will, a combat system where you must battle alongside your monster in order to overcome foes, some really cool monster customization mechanics like the Rite of Channeling, which allows you to take monster abilities from one monster and add them to another, tons of monster riding, and evil to vanquish. This title is also available on 3DS for those interested, and honestly, I've played the 3DS version and it's tons of fun. If you like the sequel, you'll definitely like this one, and if you are a mobile-only player and couldn't play the sequel, now's your chance. Skyclimbers is a game that I really think may break the conventions of what to expect from a mobile title. This city-building, monster-taming open-world sandbox features hundreds of monsters, or sentients, that can be tamed and utilized as companions for combat, a player-driven experience allowing you to decide what you want to spend your time doing, a procedurally generated world, large war-type battles using a RTS system, and a whole lot more. This is probably one of, if not the nicest looking game on the list graphically, and is definitely going to be very interesting to see on mobile. The game is also coming out to pretty much every other platform, including Google Stadia as well, so definitely worth checking out. It really wouldn't be a mobile monster taming video without including the Nexomon franchise, both of which are now out on mobile platforms. Nexomon 1 has been out since 2017, but the sequel, Nexomon Extinction, has recently launched on mobile, and if you haven't played it yet, it's got a few upgrades from the original. The game now features a semi-open world to explore, a brand new story that is roughly twice as long as the originals, over 380 Nexomon to catch and utilize in battle, 2 new types in Psychic and Ghost, a free DLC being worked on right now, and a whole lot more. If you're looking for something that's more similar to Pokemon, but with its own really fun quirks and twists, I definitely would recommend this game. A really fun mobile title that I've personally enjoyed is Botworld Adventure, an open-world robot battling RPG with several bots to obtain and utilize in very simple yet fun and engaging 3-on-3 combat, where the tamer also participates by utilizing various abilities and weapons from the outside. The game is free to play and not aggressive with its monetization, which is definitely good. The game also gives me those Metabot vibes. Beyond just a robot aspect, you can build the robots by finding their skeletons and then putting the various parts together, though it's not quite as customizable as Metabots. I do definitely recommend checking the game out if you haven't already. EvoCreo can be described as a monster taming adventure RPG with a focus on monster customization. The game focuses on a more personal endeavor with the main character whom is searching for their father, whom may or may not have gone to the gas station to get cigarettes. You spend your time exploring the world of Zenith and ultimately go up against enemies called the Shadow Hive. There is a sequel also in the works that we don't have a whole lot of information on, but given the story-driven RPG aspects of the first, I think it's definitely going to be something to enjoy. Neo Monsters is a bit more of a controversial title. I've seen both praise and dissent. The praise oftentimes comes from its over 1,000 monsters, its long campaign, and its turn-based battles, whilst some complain the game is very buggy and has progression issues. Either way, the game features 4-on-4 battles with up to 16 monsters, several islands to explore, 6 distinct leagues to challenge, over 100 missions to partake in, online PvP, and more. As someone who mostly plays console and PC titles, my channel definitely has a bit of a gap with the mobile-oriented games, so let me know down below if you'd like me to cover more mobile-only titles. Okay, so another title I'm really looking forward to is Essentures, a Pokemon-like, Zelda-like RPG where you must traverse the 4 kingdoms, both capturing and utilizing monsters as companions and weapons. The game features both turn-based and action combat, where in the overworld you can utilize monsters as various weapons, such as a sword or a shield, etc., and in turn-based combat you could utilize them sort of like you would in a game like Pokemon. The mix between the two genres at a face value seems very odd, I'm not gonna lie, but as you can see on screen, it works pretty well. I personally really like the old school Game Boy Color pixel art aesthetic, and I also really enjoy old school Zelda, so I'm really excited for this one personally. The Siralim games are not new to the channel. I've been covering the most recent game's development via Monster Tamer News for probably about 2 years now. That said, the Siralim games, especially the recent title Siralim Ultimate, are very complex titles that require a plethora of game knowledge to even scratch the surface of the most basic in-game features. For starters, you have over 1,000 monsters. Each monster has its own unique stats and traits. Then you have 24 classes that your player can exist as a part of, which leads into various perks that you can acquire for both your character and your monster to make yourself stronger. You then have builds that revolve around burning your enemies. You have builds that revolve around dodging, around critical hits, etc. The game functions similar to a roguelike, but more in the vein of something like Dragon Warrior Monsters, where it's not really a roguelike because there's no permadeath or anything like that, but you still have your randomly generated realms, and in this case you have 6-on-6 combat, which is highly complex as mentioned earlier. The game features thousands of achievements, tons of costumes for your characters, cosmetics for your monsters, decorations for your castle, and a lot more. While the past Siralim titles are currently out for mobile already, Siralim Ultimate just released on full access on Steam, and the mobile port is being developed as we speak and is slated for a February or March launch. Dragon Quest V is revered by many to be one of the pioneers of the monster taming genre, with it being the first Dragon Quest title to feature a recruitment system by which you can tame and utilize monsters in combat to fight alongside you. Originally being launched on the Super Nintendo in 1992, it actually in part inspired Satoshi Tajiri into creating the Pokemon franchise. While different in its approach, Dragon Quest V is a first-person JRPG with turn-based combat. It's actually a full-priced mobile title, so it's not been cut up and bastardized in order to push microtransactions like we see with other mobile games that exist. Either way, definitely a classic that warrants more exploration from even myself. A project that, while a fan title, definitely deserves to be on this list is Digital Tamers Reborn, a Digimon raising and battling sim with over 350 Digimon to take care of, train, and utilize in real-time battles. The game has over 100 challenges to complete, tournaments, and honestly, the first time I ever laid eyes upon this game, I thought that the official Digimon franchise was actually coming out with a pixel art Digimon title. That's how good this game looks. I think if you're someone who's a fan of Monster Rancher, you'll probably find some enjoyment in this game as well, with it having a similar sort of monster raising and battling feel to it. Also of note, I didn't want to make this a separate entry because the game is really early development. We don't even have a name, but the same developer is also creating a Digimon RPG that will work in the same vein as a game like Pokemon. Anyways, for Digital Tamers Reborn, you can find it on itch.io and it's free. Necromancer's Gift is a monster taming roguelike with one-on-one turn-based combat and is inspired by Slay the Spire. Now, much like a lot of other games on this list, it is being developed for PC. However, thanks to the game reaching a certain Kickstarter stretch goal, a mobile port is also in the works as well that will function like a full title, no microtransactions, anything like that. The game features various branching paths for you to choose from, some with enemies to defeat, others with monsters to obtain. You have your shop and all that fun stuff. At the end of each level, you have a floor leader who acts sort of like a boss trainer. You must fight your way through the Necromancer's lair in order to find your dog, whom has been lost within. A very strange concept overall, but as soon as we get a build that I'm able to publicly showcase, I'll definitely give it a try. I'm saving my first impressions for then, so definitely stay tuned. We don't have a release date just yet. Okay, so does Coromon really need any introduction in a Gym Leader Ed video? As some of you may know, I am a human and therefore I tend to have a particular set of interests that make me lean more heavily towards certain games. I'm a huge fan of story-driven RPGs with turn-based combat. I love having an interesting world to explore, fun characters, combat that's not too simplistic but not too complex, and solid monster design. Coromon has all of this and more. It's a Pokemon-like RPG that has you exploring a vibrant world full of enemies to quash and Coromon to capture. Instead of something more similar to gym battles, you have Titan bosses, which are these big boss monsters with tons of health and stamina and special abilities, kind of like what you'd expect from a boss in Final Fantasy. You have an interesting twist on what many would consider the shiny system, where your Coromon's stats and potential directly influence the color. You have your normal Coromon, your potent Coromon, and and your perfect Coromon, so it makes finding a shiny that much more valuable. It also features some Zelda-like mechanics in terms of its puzzles. You have puzzles that you have to solve, but you also have puzzles where you actually have to dodge incoming projectiles and stuff like that, so it's pretty cool. It may look very reminiscent of Pokemon, but don't be fooled, it definitely has a lot of features that make it unique and something that I'm truly excited for. Much like what the previously mentioned Tamers Arena is going to be, Monster Masters is a title dedicated to monster battling and training with online PvP and some type of adventure mode planned. The goal of the game is to essentially win battles against NPCs and players and subsequently unlock new monsters and other goodies along the way. I've played this game a bit myself. The combat seems pretty intuitive but also simple. In my experience, the game runs pretty well as well. There's not a whole lot to say about this game, it's literally just a simple concept with a fun experience. Another title that recently released on non-mobile platforms is Monster Crown, an open-world pixel art monster taming RPG with a heavy emphasis on breeding given its complex crossbreeding system. This system allows you to take two monsters and fuse them together and obtain hybrid creatures that take various attributes, including stats, colors, and forms from their parents. On top of this, you also have the freedom to determine which attributes come from which parent, allowing for an insane amount of customization. Furthermore, since launch, the game features randomizer and Nuzlocke settings, further adding to replayability. It also has synergy forms and other types of transformations, which are kind of like Mega Evolution, fusion, online trading, and PvP, and a whole lot more. It's currently out on Steam and Switch, with PS4 and Xbox One coming this month, and mobile planned for the future, but we don't have a date just yet. So while not technically a mobile game in the traditional sense, Familiars.io is browser-based and optimized to be played on pretty much any device. Hell, if you go to the Twitter page, you can literally play the game in a tweet, which is really funny and cool. Now, Familiars is a monster taming MMO that pretty much just plops you in its world and allows for full exploration with very little context. You can battle other players, discover new monsters, and even better than that, the dev is pretty active on Twitter where you can see the latest updates. Oh, and the game is free, by the way, so that's also good. Xander the Monster Morpher is a monster taming shooter RPG that allows the player to catch, train, and fuse their monsters together for combat. Monsters all have different stats and perks, making them unique, and the game features over 100 of these with 200 attacks to experiment with. The game also has animated cutscenes, a shiny system, actual post-game content, which a lot of monster taming games don't have, which is definitely nice, and a lot more. The game is yet another example of how monster taming games don't need to be turn-based to be considered monster tamers. Summon Mate is a monster taming game that I've never heard of until doing research for this video, but as far as review goes, it seems that many people who have played this game definitely enjoyed it. It's a turn-based monster taming RPG that looks very reminiscent of the RPG Maker engine. The game features over 160 monsters, various puzzles to solve, difficulty options, hundreds of spells to cast, and after sifting through some reviews and doing some additional research on the internet, a lot of people seem to be in agreement that the monetization system is very non-intrusive. Some people even saying that they're not sure how the devs even make money on it. Some criticisms of the game are the fact that there's not really a story. You're just kind of put somewhere and you got to figure stuff out yourself. And apparently the game is ridiculously easy on easy mode, so you're better off choosing another difficulty setting. Other than that, the game seems pretty typical from a monster taming perspective. Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX is a collection of the first two Monster Rancher titles originally released on PlayStation 1. The Monster Rancher franchise is pretty famous for its disc mechanic, which has been converted in these titles. The basic idea was that you could grab any CD and insert that CD into your PlayStation, out will come a monster. Given that phones can't take CDs and the technology is pretty outdated, the game instead uses a list of thousands of songs for you to choose from, basically meaning that you have every disc available all at your disposal in your smartphone. The game is a monster raising sim with real-time battles and a fusion mechanic, and all in all, Monster Rancher is just one of those pioneers when it comes to monster raising games. Despite it not being the first, it was definitely one of the most influential, to say the least. So if you want to raise up some monsters, increase their stats through training, and have them fight, definitely consider checking this game out. I played the Steam version myself and enjoyed it thoroughly. Also, do note that the game is only out on iOS, no Android version, unfortunately. And finally, last but not least, we have Band of Monsters, a story-driven RPG that takes place 3 years after a day in which all the monsters of the world went corrupt. The game features turn-based multi-battle combat, over 170 monsters to collect and utilize in said battle, and I quote, heartfelt story, online PvP and tournaments, and a fusion system dubbed Mixing. I've seen some reviews stating that the monetization gets a little bit pushy at times, and the intro sequence is quite long, but the game is free to play and overall has a pretty positive set of reviews. This is yet another title that I did not know existed until putting together this video, despite it having over 500,000 downloads. I think this and the other games I've not heard of up to now is a testament to the fact that the monster taming genre is a lot bigger than even we give it credit for. And there you go, guys. Those were 20 new and upcoming monster taming titles on mobile. Most of these games are both Android and iOS, with an unfortunate exception being Monster Rancher, but alas, this was definitely a very fun video to put together. I just want to say special thanks to my friends Cirque and Marcelo for helping me find games that were outside of the usual ones that I cover. I'm definitely more of a PC and console gamer, so when it came to cell phone games, this was definitely helpful. That said, let me know in the comments which games on this list you have already played and whether or not you enjoyed them. Which games have you not seen before until now that you're planning on getting? I always love reading through your guys' comments, and if you are a fan of monster taming games, whether they be on mobile or PC or consoles, definitely make sure to subscribe to the channel because I put out new monster taming videos every single day. You can also follow me on Twitter at GymLeaderEd, check out my Discord and my Patreon, all links below. Special thanks to all of our patrons, especially Dark Persona, StealCase, and Jim Hamilton, and with all that, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.